Our Weird World. I'm your host, John Henson, and today, in the life of why do I do this to myself, it's real bad having a name that you share with other people who suck. You can do this if you want to ruin your life, but you can set up Google alerts for yourself, essentially. I don't know why I do it. I'm not that important, but you can set up Google alerts where anytime something new that contains your name, and obviously it doesn't have to necessarily be specifically you, but it could just be someone who also has the same name as you. And anytime something new pops up on Google, you'll get an alert to see what it is. And over the course of time, I've learned that there are some other John Hensons out there, and they are not the most upstanding people. There's a senator who got caught doing some gay stuff in a bathroom, and he was one of those senators who was like, "Bro, get rid of all the gays." And so I also learned that there's apparently a mental health therapist in Arizona who, despite a ban on conversion therapy, still tries to practice conversion therapy on the gay folks. So, and then there's me, who tells irreverent stories. There's also, for what it's worth, there's also another John Henson who writes books, but it's like piano music books and stuff. So what a loser that guy is, right? But yeah, so again, I just want, apparently there are a lot of John Hensons out there who are closeted gay Republicans who are just being mean to gay people. And I'm not one of them. All right. Listen, here's the thing. I don't care about gay people. Like, you do your thing. Fine, whatever. But I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, I support all the gays. Happy Pride Month. Blah, blah. I don't care about all of that. I don't. But also, you do your thing. I don't care. Like, what gay people do and transgender and all of the other alphabet mafia people do, all of the rainbow warrior people do, I don't care, because what they do doesn't affect me. All right. But John, what about all of them going into the bathrooms and molesting the children? That doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. If it happened once, okay, that's an isolated incident. It doesn't mean they're all doing that. Doesn't mean the majority of them are doing that. Doesn't mean that there's an alarming number of them doing that. Okay? Because if we're going to take that stance, let's take that stance against, I don't know, all of the white people who always do all of the worst things. Why am I on this soapbox this morning? But let's finish it real quick, right? Like, all of the white people who look like me. Oh, let's make sure all the white people are put away forever because all of the white people are Proud Boys, are skinheads, are KKK members, are serial killers, are rapists, are pedophiles. That is, if you look at that group of people, I would argue that 95% of people who fit those labels are white. All right. And 95 might be a little low. Okay. So let's maybe slow our roll on what it is that we're so upset about and just let people live their lives. I'm talking about the gay people. I'm not talking about, let's not let pedophiles live their lives. Let's kill them. I think we can all agree on that. Let's find them. Pay-per-view executions. I'm still on this. Let's do that. Man, that would be so great. The world would be a better place if we had no pedophiles and pay-per-view executions. It would be so great. Anyway, today, look, and all of this really lends to our topic today, which is Florida. Again, for the third time. I'm not doing it high or anything like that. All right, I've got 5 stories here, and we're going to do them like any other episode that we would do. All right, we're going to look at the stories of John Knight, Bennie Wint, Byrd Billings, Bob Allen, and then our first story will be of Wakulla Springs. All right, see, we're doing the regular intro. I'm not even doing the Florida song that I used on the last 2 episodes of when we talked about Florida, because it's a dumb song and you get it at this point. And I am not one to continue running a bit into the ground after it has lost its potency. All right, I heard that song probably on a radio show, probably like 15 years ago at this point, maybe 20, because I'm old. All right, I'm getting old. And you get it. It's a dumb, stupid song that is probably from like the 50s, maybe even the 40s. And it's really stupid. And I am not going to stoop so low as to
Florida. Take a ride, see the sights, have your fun in the sun. See the old, see the new, for Florida belongs to you.
Plan a trip and do it soon. Here today, tomorrow the moon. Take the kids, have a ball, for Florida's the greatest of them all.
From the Gulf to the Atlantic and the Keys just beyond.
It's beautiful and so gigantic, and you can dream your Ponce de Leon.
Tell the world, sing it loud.
It's your state.
Say you're proud. More to see, lots to do. For Florida belongs to you.
For many years up into the 1800s, the area of Wakulla Springs, south of Tallahassee, was constantly illuminated. You knew I was going to do it. You knew I was. It's Florida. Anyway, Wakulla Springs, south of Tallahassee, was constantly illuminated by this mysterious bright light that was also accompanied by a steady column of smoke. The Seminole tribe had noted these strange lights as far back as the 1830s. A lot of them probably saw it before then too. Just there wasn't any written record of it. Settlers in the area assumed that it was coming from Seminole campfires or maybe even pirates somewhere out in the Gulf. Some, however, were totally convinced that a volcano was constantly erupting and bubbling at the surface, which, given every other weird geological feature in Florida, actually not that outrageous. All right. And here's what I'm saying. Like, there are caves in Florida that you can visit. I mean, they're giant sinkholes, huge springs, all kinds of other strange, like, geological features. So, like, a volcano, not entirely, like, Florida also gets earthquakes. I don't know if you were aware of that, but they do. And so all of this, a volcano, not exactly as dumb as it might sound. Despite numerous people searching the swamplands for the source of this light, the origin was actually never found. And then, just as mysteriously as people started talking about it, and as it appeared and it became this big topic of conversation, the lights and smoke vanished on August 31st, 1886, which just so happened to be the same day as the magnitude 7 earthquake that hit Charleston, South Carolina. Now, I know you're probably wondering, hey, isn't Tallahassee like really far away from Charleston? And you would be correct. It's about 400 miles away. So how could an earthquake 400 miles away have anything to do with something that happens in Florida? And that is science. See, because of how the soil is, it's not rocky. It's more sandy. It's looser-ish. And so any kind of earthquake that happens in the southeast, or at least along the east coast, is felt over a much farther distance, and the seismic waves travel a much longer distance and have a larger effect on the land farther away from the epicenter. That's fact. All right. You can Google that. You can GTS it. All right. That's true. And so the idea is that the earthquake kind of shifted the land, all the way down in Florida and affected this mysterious light. However, that's not what people thought at the time. People thought, at least in Florida, that this earthquake was so massive that the Florida peninsula they thought had just broken off of the mainland, which again, not the most outrageous thought, because it's a magnitude 7 earthquake in this area, unheard of, borderline impossible to happen, but it happened. It didn't, obviously. And a lot of experts believe that the smoke and the light was really just a deep burning peat fire, possibly sparked by lightning, like in the swamps around Wakulla. And that earthquake likely caused enough movement in the ground to just finally bury that fire beneath the damp soil. So just a strange event that happened, and people had some silly ideas about it. Side note, Wakulla Springs today is home to Henry the pole vaulting fish. And on paper, this sounds amazing and actually kind of impossible. How do you pole vault underwater? Even more, how does a fish with no opposable thumbs or any way to grab things do the act of pole vaulting, which is to jab a stick into the ground and then hurl itself over an obstacle of some sort? It's so much more disappointing than that, because it's Florida. It's a tourist gimmick. The truth is that Henry, the pole vaulting fish, is not just one special fish with some weird talent. It's actually just every fish that lives in the spring. Every fish in Wakulla Springs is just Henry the pole vaulting fish. And so basically during the glass bottom boat tours at Wakulla Springs State Park, I've been on a glass bottom boat tour. It's the most white thing you can do. I haven't done it at Wakulla Springs. I did it at Silver Springs. It's dumb. It's real dumb. Like, you get in a boat that has plexiglass on the bottom so you can see brown fish. Like, you can see anything that you would see in an aquarium, but somehow more lame. It's real dumb, but whatever. It's nature, and I would do it again, 100%, because I'm white. But during these glass bottom boat tours, the boat captain would kind of just float the boat over an old log and then just wait for like a bass or a catfish or any other kind of fish to swim up and clean its gills on the flat surface of the log. And because of the way that the glass is curved and a visual of the fish swimming up to the log and turning sideways and contorting itself over the log to clean its gills kind of makes it look like it's pole vaulting over it's so dumb, but white people will eat this up. It is a big money maker down there. So if you're in the area, if you're going to Tallahassee for some reason, go down to Wakulla Springs, go look at a pole vaulting fish. Anyway, moving on here to September of 1989, when Bennie Wint traveled down to Daytona Beach, Florida for a nice vacation with his 4-year-old daughter, Christy, and his beautiful bride-to-be, Patricia Hollingsworth. But Bennie, he was in a predicament, all right? He had been selling drugs, and he was absolutely certain that the police knew about it. He thought that he was going, he thought that going to the courthouse to get his marriage license would then alert police to his crimes and result in his arrest. So Bennie did the only thing that he could possibly think of. He told Patricia that he was going out for a swim while they were hanging out at Daytona Beach. And as he waded out into the surf, he just disappeared beneath the waves. And after several minutes, Patricia grew concerned when Bennie did not resurface. He didn't come back to shore. And so she called the police and the Coast Guard to conduct a search, but Bennie's body was never found. They pronounced him dead from drowning and likely being eaten by a shark or something. Now, you know that that's not what really happened. Instead, he just swam down the shoreline, got out at a farther spot down along the beach, and just started hitchhiking his way to Ozark, Alabama, nearly 400 miles away. He then changed his name to William Sweet and started a new life. He even got married to a different woman and had a son with her. Nearly 20 years later, Bennie had moved out from Alabama and was running a flea market stand in Weaverville, North Carolina, just north of Asheville, because Alabama was not rural enough. One day, police in Weaverville pulled Bennie over for a broken taillight that was supposed to illuminate his license plate. And when Bennie gave police his fake name of William Sweet, nothing came up because dude had just bothered to not actually get any kind of documentation made or anything for it. He's just out living a fake life. I don't know how he then would have gotten a marriage license in Alabama. I don't know. Maybe Alabama doesn't care about these things. Anyway, when police then asked Bennie again for his identity, he cracked and confessed to more than the police officer who made the traffic stop was likely prepared to hear about. Bennie was also equally surprised to learn that his original record had been clean the entire time and that he'd spent the last 20 years of his life unnecessarily paranoid for absolutely nothing. So that's a fun little story there. Moving on November 7th, 1997, John Knight called the Jacksonville police to report that he and his girlfriend, Amanda Abbott, had gotten into a fight. Police arrived, arrested both of them, and charged the couple with misdemeanor domestic violence. The two spent the night in separate jail cells, paid a fine, moved on. Things calmed down between the two for several months, but then on January 11th, 1999, Knight called the police again to report another fight. Just like before, the couple was charged with misdemeanor domestic violence, but rather than Knight and Abbott serving the same sentence again, Duval County Judge Sharon Tanner convicted Knight of the charge and sentenced him to the day in jail that he had already served, plus a fine, plus a probation, and batterers classes. So she has now painted him as the aggressor and as the one who is instigating all these fights, and that Amanda Abbott is just an innocent little victim here. Abbott's adjudication was withheld, meaning that she was charged with the same crime and was given the same punishment, but it did not go on her record, thus tilting everything slightly in her favor, right? A month later, Knight's mother sent a letter to Judge Tanner highlighting this unfairness. Tanner reopened the case and reduced the charge to fighting. She lifted the probation charge on Knight and replaced it with another fine. And although Knight's wallet was a little bit lighter, his record was a little bit cleaner, or at least it should have been. Because what happened was the courtroom clerk accidentally recorded the new judgment as domestic battery, which was way worse than a simple fighting conviction. Even worse, no one noticed this mistake for 5 years. And so over that course of time, Amanda Abbott ran off to Tennessee and ended up in jail after pleading guilty to felony theft, auto burglary, and evading arrest. So she's a real dumpster fire of a person, all right? By the end of the year 2000, Knight was starting to really feel the effects of his conviction, or his, wrongful conviction at this point. He began writing letters to Governor Jeb Bush, Assistant State Attorney John Phillips, and Judge Tanner, asking them to clear his record because no one would hire a convicted domestic batterer, which he was not, technically. All three of them responded to his letters and outlined the legal steps he needed to take to clear his name. Did John Knight follow any of those steps? No, he did not. Instead, on August 4th, 2004, he walked up to the receptionist at Attorney Christopher Haslip's office in downtown Jacksonville with a 9mm gun in an envelope, claiming to be a member of the Justice Department. The reception, without hesitation, because why would someone lie about this, let Knight into Haslip's office, where Knight then held this dude hostage for the next 3 hours. Knight demanded to talk to Jacksonville's mayor, John Payton, before letting Haslip free, and wanted the mayor to force Judge Tanner to resign because he felt the adjudication she had awarded his ex-girlfriend the year before was a form of discrimination. Knight also told the mayor that he had a bomb, he didn't, but that he would blow up the 28-story tower that he was in, which included a daycare, if Judge Tanner didn't resign in 90 minutes. Mayor Payton, not wanting to have another Oklahoma City bombing scenario, followed through with Knight's request, and within minutes, Judge Tanner actually appeared on a local news station reading a written resignation statement. And Knight saw this, and as promised, he let Haslip free. He surrendered to authorities, who then quickly charged him with kidnapping, aggravated assault, carrying a concealed weapon, perpetrating a bomb hoax, and impersonating a law enforcement officer. Unfortunately, in all of this, Tanner hadn't actually resigned. The statement that she read had been written by police and wasn't official at all. And apparently, you can just do that. You can lie on television and fake everybody out just so that someone doesn't fake blow up a big building. I didn't know you could do that, but she did. And that's how that story ends. John Knight went to prison for a long time for that, by the way. In 2007, Florida Senator Bob Allen was visiting a park in Titusville that he had been very instrumental in securing funding for. As is typical in Florida, a thunderstorm popped up while Allen admired his political achievement. But rather than running to his car to get out of the rain, Allen went and sought shelter in the men's bathroom. And while in there, he decided to pop a squat in an empty stall where he quickly realized that he was not the only person in this bathroom. Sitting into the stall next to him was every white politician's worst nightmare, a large, intimidating black man. Now, Allen, who did not want to become another rape victim statistics at the hands of a sex-craved black guy, his insinuation, not mine, he knew that he needed to do something to show that he was a friend of the black man. So he peered over the edge of the stall wall, not once, but twice. This black dude just sitting there taking a dump. Bob Allen's next to him, freaking out. Because he's like, oh man, all black people are rapists. He's going to rape me. I know it. So I need to figure out what to do. So he like stands up and he's like looking over the top of this stall wall at this black dude taking a dump. And he realized like, okay, all right, I've got to get closer to this guy and like make amends with him and make peace with him. So Allen decided that the only logical thing for him to do was to walk into this man's stall and offer him $20 and a beeger. All right. Just a big old mouth hug. Just, hello, Mr. Black Man. I've got $20 and a mouthful of spit for you. Let me get in there. And this was shocking for two reasons. Neither of which had anything to do with race, by the way. First, Allen was an older, presumably straight white gentleman, which, of course, you could guess that. The second, and probably most ironic, was that Allen had made a political career for himself by standing vehemently against gay rights, going so far as to sponsor a bill that would increase penalties for unnatural, i.e. gay, sexual acts and exposure of sexual organs committed within a specific distance of certain locations, such as schools and parks. So Bob Allen helps secure funding for this nice new park in Titusville while also having sponsored bills to increase penalties for creepy pedophile gay people who whip out their wiener in said parks. Has now gone into the bathroom in a park and whipped out, or at least tried to whip out his wiener or tried to do something with said wieners. All right. It's classic. All right. I talk about it at the start of the show because there's another John Henson who kind of does the same thing. Much to Allen's closeted disappointment, this black man, not only was he not interested in Allen's advances, the guy was an undercover police officer who immediately arrested Allen. He was charged with prostitution and was forced to resign from office, which is fantastic. Our final story here is of Byrd Billings, specifically Byrd and Melanie Billings, his wife, who lived in a large house on the west side of Pensacola, Florida. Wealthy family. Byrd had acquired a hefty estate after building a financial services company, selling used cars, and owning a strip club. And while you're probably being a little judgmental about that, know that Byrd and Melanie had adopted over a dozen children, most of whom had special needs. So why don't you take your judgment, zip it back up, and put it back in your pocket? All right. Strip club owners are not automatically terrible people. All right. This was a good dude. All right. And I hope you feel like a jerk. I hope you heard me say that he owned a strip club and were immediately like, ew, I hope this guy gets murdered. And then you find out that he adopted a dozen kids. Most of them had special needs. So, and those special needs were not needing lap dances. All right. They had actual special needs. And this dude was taking care of them. And so if you had a bad thought about this man, you're a jerk. Anyway, as part of Byrd's business dealings, he had given a man named Leonard Patrick Gonzalez Jr. money for a martial arts studio in 2009. And because Byrd was a good guy, he had also given Leonard a key to his house because Byrd apparently just had this 1950s mentality where any good neighbor was allowed to just waltz right into your home without you having to worry about being robbed or assaulted, even in Florida, which is wild. After a few visits, though, over to the house, Leonard became convinced that the Billings were keeping $13 million inside a safe somewhere in the house. And he wanted it because getting financing from Byrd to open his own martial arts studio wasn't nearly enough for this guy. This is the real villain in the story, not Byrd Billings, the strip club owner / adopted father to a bunch of special needs children. All right. So let's get that straight. So one night in October 2010, Leonard, his father, and 5 others showed up at the Billings house dressed like ninjas. Because of course, I mean, dude owned a martial arts studio. What else was he going to dress like? The group broke in, shot Byrd and Melanie Billings execution style, which isn't how a ninja is supposed to do things. He's supposed to take the katana and, decapitate him. But no, shot them execution style and then escaped with a safe. The safe that he was for sure knew had 13 million in cash in it. And when the group broke the safe open, they just discovered a few legal documents, medicine for the Billings special needs children, and some random costume jewelry. There was, however, another safe in the house that was full of money, but it only contained about $150,000, and Leonard never actually found it. After the failed burglary, Leonard and his band of ninjas dumped the guns and the safe in the backyard of an additional accomplice. Both of them, both the safe and the group were found shortly thereafter, with the local sheriff calling the case, quote, a real humdinger, which is exactly what you'd expect a Southern sheriff to say when ninjas are involved in anything. Everyone in the case was eventually arrested. Leonard was given the death penalty, and you really should probably feel bad about yourself and your judgment right now. All right, Florida, 5 more stories in the books. You can read more of these stories and others on my memoir, Where the Weird Things Are. I traveled through Florida. I saw some things. I did some things. I reflected on some things. You can find that at johnhensonwrites.com. And so that's it. Let's recap today and see what we learned.
What did we learn?
Number 1, Wakulla Springs. There was never a volcano there. Don't let anybody tell you anything different. Probably just a random wildfire, peat fire that got put out after the 1886 earthquake in Charleston. It's weird how that happens, but that's true. Number 2, Bennie Wint thought that the government was after him. They weren't, but he decided to just fake his own death and then live 20 years with a new life and a new family, all on his own until he got caught for a busted license plate light and then found out that no one had cared about him this entire time. And then number 3, Bob Allen, classic politician. You advocate for taking the rights away from gay people while you yourself are a closeted, shamed homosexual. So you got what you deserved, you piece of trash. Next week on Our Weird World, I am excited for next week's episode because it brings up a lot of fun memories for me. We're going to talk about some school shenanigans. All right. Oh man, got a ton of stories. There's going to be this big episode. All right. We're going to be talking about stuff that happened in Greenbrier High School, Blackminster Middle School, Rosemount High School, Walter White Elementary, Tularosa Elementary School, Scales Elementary School. They're all over the country and I think all over the world, honestly. You haven't heard of any of these stories, but you're gonna. And I don't know, maybe I'll throw some of my own fun school shenanigans in there from my time in high school because I got some stories. And oh man, tune in next week. Gonna be a fun episode with just the insane just stupidity that happens in our schools around the country. Can't wait for that. That's it. Thank you so much for continuing to listen. Keep telling all your friends about the show and keep it weird.